started. So thank you again for all joining for our Big Data for Patients webinar today. I will be one of our co-presenters today. My name is Alicia Chow, and I've been working with the Reagan-Udall Foundation for about 4 years now. So I work as a project manager on a couple different projects, and I've gotten to become involved with the development of this program, and it's a really exciting program, and we're happy to be sharing with you a little bit about it today. And Diana?
Hi, my name is Diana Lee Chavarria, and I am new to Reagan-Udall. I actually just started in August, and I am the program coordinator for BD4P.
All right. With that, let's get to it. So just wanted to briefly show you what we plan to cover today. I'll first be talking a little bit about Reagan-Udall for those of you that are not as familiar with the foundation, and then we'll be going into a little more detailed discussion on the Big Data for Patients program, covering some of our main goals and objectives, and giving an update on where we are with the program at this moment, and talking about ways that you can get involved. So for a little background on the Reagan-Udall Foundation for the FDA, our mission is really to support and promote new science and to advance the mission of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. So really, due to the breadth and scope of FDA's nature, or the things under FDA's regulatory purview, it's really a challenge for FDA to keep pace with some of the science and technological advances. So Congress created Reagan-Udall as an independent foundation to help support and drive advances in regulatory science. So the focus of our work is on science and not really policy issues or advocacy and regulation. So our role is really to support and augment research and methods development to support FDA's regulatory decision making. And so Reagan-Udall, we really act as a neutral third party to convene public-private partnerships of diverse stakeholders. Partnerships include we have broad participation in these partnerships, including members of industry, research institutes, other nonprofits, patients and advocates, as well as advocacy organizations, academic partners, other foundations, and government members. And so really our focus is on these partnerships to pull in the right people and the right resources all under one roof to leverage the special skills, expertise, and resources across these diverse stakeholder groups. And one key thing that we would like to say is we really strive for a mix of funding from public-private sources to support all of our work. And so Reagan-Udall itself is not a funding agency, and so really we look to leverage these resources that all of the various partners in our programs bring to the table to help us develop and build projects and programs as we go. And so to provide a quick snapshot of some of the projects that Reagan-Udall is currently involved in, I have this little chart here. On the next slide, I'll be going into a little more detail on some of the projects, but just wanted to highlight our main areas of focus. These are focusing on methods and tools development to support assessing the safety of FDA-regulated products, and also training and education initiatives to strengthen scientific capacity. And so for a little detail on some of our ongoing projects, so the CPTR is the Critical Path to Tuberculosis Drug Regimens Initiative. And so in this project, Reagan-Udall is actually one of many partners. And the work that we focus on in that initiative is really focused on developing methods to facilitate patient and stakeholder engagement and ensure good participatory practices in tuberculosis research. For our IMEDS program, that's the Innovation in Medical Evidence Development and Surveillance. So this program looks at developing methods for mining and analysis of electronic health records to be better able to predict adverse drug events. And also as part of this, we're looking to develop a process to make FDA's Sentinel data and tools and capabilities more accessible to external parties outside of the FDA. And this kind of goes along with one of our core principles of Reagan-Udall, and in that we strive to put the knowledge, tools, and materials developed in our projects and programs back into the public domain so that all stakeholders can benefit. And then our Predict Tox program is a project that looks at developing methods to model and predict adverse drug events, particularly with looking at linking and establishing a correlation between tyrosine kinase inhibitors and cardiotoxic adverse events. And so, as you see, particularly with our IMEDS program, some of our work has taken on a data-heavy, has been heavy in the data analysis end of things. And so one thing that we do for each of our programs is establish an advisory governance committee, either a stakeholder or a steering committee and scientific advisory committee. And for each of these committees, we look for broad stakeholder participation. So it's really important to us to have patient representation on all of these advisory panels. And so it was a little bit of a struggle, for example, in recruiting for the steering and scientific advisory committees for our IMEDS program to find a patient advocate representative who felt comfortable participating in an advisory role. And so because of that, and due to we see down the road a lot of our projects having a data focus, we saw the need and opportunity to create a program focused on informing and educating patients in the science of big data so that they can more actively participate in some of these efforts and also be better able and prepared and comfortable participating in advisory capacities. So with that, I'm going to move on to talk about our Big Data for Patients program. And so big data, what is big data? And we realize in using the term big data, it's a buzzword. And we did that kind of in one way to pique people's interest, but also to kind of acknowledge the fact that when people use big data or use the term big data, it doesn't always mean the same thing to everyone. And as we really think about this program, we're not always talking about only big data. Whether it's big data or little data, there's issues and challenges that arise when we think about how this data is being collected, used, analyzed, and applied, and ultimately how use of that data impacts patients and patient health. So big data is an area that's rapidly evolving. I'm sure a lot of you, or if not all of you, have been aware of things in the news lately. For example, the Precision Medicine Initiative, patient-focused drug development, and patient-reported outcomes. And these things are tying together really both the data side and the patient engagement side. And so this is really what drove us to propose and develop the Big Data for Patients program. And so this program is going to be a data science training program focused on informing and empowering patient advocates on big data research issues, in particularly how big data research affects patients and how they can become more involved. So the key goal of this project is really to ensure that the patient voice and patient needs are essential driver of big data research efforts in biomedicine. Some of the key objectives of this are really to raise and increase the awareness of big data research efforts currently ongoing, such as the initiatives that I just mentioned, and how these efforts are affecting patients. Another objective is to really increase the base level scientific literacy in the core concepts of big data so that patient advocates are better able to communicate on these issues, both with their peers and in their constituencies, but also with and to the research community and policymakers, so that they can have more of a voice in shaping and driving some of this research. And additionally, this program will help to develop a community of informed and empowered patient advocates. And really, we hope that that community will be able to build a community of practice so that the people or those that are involved directly in the training course can have there'll be a life outside of the training program itself. So the community of practice will allow a platform for engagement beyond the training workshop setting and allow for information exchange between patients and researchers, and really helping to have this extend the lifetime of this program. So where we are now, before I turn it over to Diana, I will just say Reagan-Udall received a PCORI Engagement Award, which allowed us to initiate work on this program in July. And so that award is supporting the first 2 years of this work, including thinking through the development of the course and curriculum, and taking us through to implementation of some pilot training workshops. So currently, we are in process of reaching out to additional potential funding partners to support this work. And with that, I will turn it over to Diana to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing right now.
All right, thank you very much, Alicia. So as you can see from our timeline, we have about the first 2 years laid out. And where we are right now is we are in the midst of identifying our steering committee and conducting our needs assessment. You can also see at the bottom we have build a community of practice, and that is going to be continuous. It's going to involve the continuous engagement between patient advocates and researchers. So that's just a little snapshot, sort of what we're doing, what the next couple of years are going to look like, and where we're going next. So as I mentioned, we're in the midst of identifying our steering committee, which is the group of people that are going to be responsible for the guidance and oversight and development of the BD4P program. They're going to work with the Reagan-Udall Foundation board, project staff, and others to really focus on the long-term vision and deliverables of the project. And we actually had open nominations, but those nominations are now closed. And we're going through an internal review to identify the members of the steering committee. The announcement we hope to have within a few weeks, where we're going to publicly announce the members of the committee. And the committee is going to be made up of broad stakeholders. And as you can see from the list there, we have people from pharmaceutical, technology, academia. And because we had such an overwhelming response for nominees, we've actually added an extra seat to patient advocates, which is now going to have 4 members, and an extra seat to at-large, which is now going to have 2 members. We are also going to have input from FDA, NIH, and PCORI. They're each going to give 1 representative, and then they're going to be non-voting. So other than the steering committee, there are other ways for stakeholders to be involved during BD4P. And as you can see in the middle there, BD4P program team is really going to be the staff in charge of developing the program. But we're really wanting to get input from stakeholders throughout the entire process. One of the main ways is being advisors, which is, of course, on the steering committee. We're also looking to engage subject matter experts in developing the curriculum and materials as we really start getting ready to begin the training programs. We're also looking for people to serve on work groups, which is going to be another way that stakeholders can have a more hands-on approach and a bigger role in program development. And also, as we get closer to training, we're going to be looking for speakers and presenters that can help actually present during the training programs. And then, of course, once the training program happens, we're really going to be looking at our trainees to help us develop that community of practice and, keep the engagement going. And then also, they're going to be our main point to be able to, give us any input on how the training is going and what we should possibly change and any sort of suggestions. So they're going to be vital in program and training evaluation. So finally, we have roles for funders and sponsors. And as Alicia mentioned earlier, we're in the process of speaking with potential partners for funding opportunities. And of course, once the training gets started, we're going to need in-kind donations, and we're going to be looking at partnerships for that to help us support the actual training programs and even things down to IT resources. So one of the main ways that we're looking to engage stakeholders in the process, throughout the entire process, but really it's going to be really important here at the beginning, is through a needs assessment. And as I mentioned, we're currently doing the needs assessment, and what it is a survey. We have it online. You can see the web address right there. We've sent it out via email and Twitter. It's been posted on the RUF webpage. And we've sent it out to various stakeholders so we can gather input. And what we're looking for is to help identify stakeholder interests in the program, get a little background on sort of what everyone knows about the whole idea of big data, and also to identify some priority topics to enter into the training program. And as I said, you can see the web address right there, and we're hoping to get, go ahead and get started on reviewing our responses. So we're asking for all responses due on October 9th. Feel free to take the survey and pass it along to any of your colleagues that you think would be interested or might have some valuable input. And then this will be posted later on our website, so we'll be able to get to that survey. There's also a link to the survey on our website, and then, of course, you can contact us if you need the email address again. All right. So one of the main points of the needs assessment, as we mentioned, was identifying these potential topic areas for inclusion into the program. And you can see some ideas listed there, and really we're just looking for ideas about, what really should be entered into the program. Some types and sources of health data and how this is being used, particularly how health data is being used and how it can impact patients, and then, of course, how patients can help impact big data research. We want to hear any ideas you may have on the program, and so we'll be getting to the discussion period shortly, so if you have any ideas, topics for discussion or questions, feel free to give them to us then, or you can also use the chat function on the webpage right now because we're monitoring that. Then also, after the webinar is over, you can email us, and our contact information will be up shortly with any more ideas or any questions you may have. But again, that's just the basic sort of topic areas of what we're looking at, and this is what the needs assessment is talking about, sort of which topics are the most important to include in the program. So finally, next steps. What are we doing? Well, as I mentioned, we're finalizing the steering committee, and we want to have that out in the next couple weeks. Then after that, we're going to be reviewing the needs assessment. Once we get all of those responses in by October 9th, we're going to be looking at them. We're going to be discussing them with the steering committee. And finally, we're going to be discussing them in our public kickoff meeting, which is going to probably be planned for early December. We don't have a date yet, but if you want to sign up for on our mailing list, you'll get more information, and you'll also get the announcement of the date once that's up. But this public meeting is really just going to be a first chance to sort of have face-to-face discussions with all stakeholders, and it's going to be a time, to have questions and talk and just really engage with each other. All right, and so there's the BD4P email address. If anyone has any questions afterwards, or if you just need to get in touch with us, that is the best way to reach us, and we check that all the time, so feel free to contact us through that. Finally, we're going to open up the floor for any questions you may have.
And so to get us started, I can address one question that we received over the chat function. And also, I'll just add, if you do find it easier to ask your questions through the chat, feel free to do it that way, and we can read your question and respond that way. So Jack Aiello asked, our program, or stated, our program sounds similar to some other big data programs, such as ASCO Centerlink and MMRF Compass program, and wanted to know if we are currently working with either of these groups. Well, right now, we're still in early stages, and so we're working to identify some existing efforts in groups to either join forces with through partnerships or collaborations, because definitely we're looking to learn from existing efforts and not duplicate efforts where unnecessary. I will say that we do have some connection with ASCO, as we have Richard Schultze on our board of directors, and he has been aware of the program and is very eager to see anywhere where there is room for collaborations between Reagan-Udall and ASCO's work. And then in regard to MMRF Compass program, we have not yet reached out to them yet, but thank you for making us aware of that, and we will definitely add them to our list of potential groups to contact.
All right, are there any other questions?
Either general questions about the program or specific questions about what we are looking for in the needs assessment.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, this is Michelle Karras with Mental Health America. I have a question.
Okay.
Will there be an element of helping patients feel empowered in the sense that they have an easier time interacting with other types of stakeholders? Or is it just really about data science?
Thanks for your question. So one of the reasons, and I guess we didn't go over this, but our vision for the program is to have the training session be an in-person session. And this does relate to your question because we've been asked why we're not only exploring developing web content. We feel that the in-person component is really critical for exactly kind of the reason that you asked about, helping patients feel empowered to engage with other stakeholders. So we feel that the in-person opportunity will provide not only the opportunity for patients to learn about the concepts of data science, but also for the instructors, our subject matter experts, our researchers, to learn from patients what are the important issues to them. So it's really about facilitating a two-way dialogue. And through these interactions, our hope is that patients will become more empowered to work with and communicate with stakeholders outside of their own communities. So that's really one of our goals for this in the long run.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Nancy Roach, and I have a comment. I've participated in these trainings both in developing them and being a total student. And what I've found over the years is that using case studies is the easiest way to help explain some of these things, just because getting a lecture is one thing, but seeing it at work and gives a whole different level of meaning. So that's one comment in terms of the course structure. I do have a question. I've been involved with NCI, National Cancer Institute efforts to engage advocates. And one of the problems, it's a problem. So there are typically a lot more people who want to be involved than there are spaces to place them in. And so, so people can get frustrated because they go to a training, they get really excited, they're ready to go, and then they don't have anything to do. I'm wondering if you are looking at different ways to engage people during, after the training, before they can get involved in something, and if you're also going to be developing a stable of opportunities, so, kind of acting as a matchmaker.
Thanks. That's a great question. So at this time, I don't think there's any formal plan for us to provide real matchmaking services, but one of our hopes and one of the reasons why we're bringing in FDA, NIH, and PCORI to really contribute and be involved in the development of this program is that each of those agencies has real need for patient advocates to serve in various roles in committees, review committees, advisory committees, and so it's not necessarily that we'll be placing people, but we'll be hoping to share opportunities where people can apply their skills learned in this course. And so that is another way we plan to use the community of practice for helping to publicize different opportunities. So not only opportunities that we become aware of but also giving the opportunity for participants and members of the community of practice to share with each other different opportunities they've come across on their own. Because I think sometimes one individual might come across something where they might not be completely suited, but either have other people in mind or could pass on the information.
And I just wanted to speak on your point about the case studies, and that actually is something that we really want to try to engage our stakeholders in, and it's one of the main roles we see as far as implementation is having these case studies and having people discuss things, because like you said, that is such an important part of it. So I did just want to say that's something we're looking at, and that's going to be a really important part of stakeholders. Is there another question on the phone?
If not, we can go to one of our...
Actually, I did have a question. This is Matthew Harker. I work for an organization called Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative, and we've been working with patient group engagement in clinical trial development processes and getting ready to put out some recommendations. So we applaud, having some semblance of a training curriculum, and Nancy Roach works on a few of our different projects, and is always a really good voice of, what really is going to resonate within the advocacy community. And my question is around, with patient-focused drug development, there's been 20 disease states that have been outlined, there's been meetings, and there's been movement about discussion around benefit-risk frameworks, endpoint that are more relevant for identifying patient and disease burden and treatment kind of efficacy that's not currently being used in the clinical trial development pipeline now. And I was wondering if it's a mixture between big data and the use of where drug development is, as well as big data and where pragmatic trials are being done to look at more why comparative effectiveness isn't moving forward, outside of like PCORI and these smaller demonstration projects, being where your accountability is for the curriculum to really have people that can help inform, I would say, different initiatives moving forward currently. I was trying to figure that out in terms of where the intent of the curriculum and how it's tied into both drug development and then regular delivery of care.
That's another great question, and I think particularly as we start to think about how we're evaluating the program, those are definitely some considerations that we'll take into account, because right now we can kind of take a look and see the state of things now, and our hope is that this course will help improve and move forward some of the efforts that you mentioned, particularly in the areas of comparative effectiveness research and patient-focused drug development. And so while at this time we don't have specifics on how we plan to affect those, I think there will be some level of, or there will definitely be follow-up with participants of the course, and also with research organizations and groups like FDA and NIH, PCORI, who are utilizing these patient trainees to kind of ask, maybe 6 months down the road after the training has been implemented, have they seen any changes, and have they noticed differences in impact, if that makes sense.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Jürgen Fink. I would also have a quick question for you.
Sure.
And it's in regards to using the data. Obviously, the primary focus for BD4P is to inform and empower patients and patient advocates, but obviously there's a lot of use of meaningful use of all the data that is being generated. And so the question is, as new ideas and technologies are being developed, how to use all the data, to what degree does this group also have input into some of the technologies or policies, even for that matter, that are being developed for their use? Just as an example, surveillance as one area that obviously at population level could be very powerful with all the data that's collected at the patient level. Would be one idea that comes to mind, but there are many more. So just influencing back again into the actual policy making. Is that also a mandate or a focus area or opportunity, at least for BD4P?
Thanks for that question. So influencing policy is not directly a goal of this program. I think more so our program is really focused on training and empowering patients. And really the onus is on the community to then take this training and go advocate for their potential or for their various areas and constituencies. Because we Reagan-Udall is not really involved in setting policy or direct advocacy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Okay, I think we'll turn over to some of the questions we've received online. Let's see. So Tom Hubbard asks, asking more of a hypothetical. So would the Big Data for Patients project be in a position to help educate patients and communities relative to the potential uses, pros and cons, and pros and cons of collecting data on family members? And this is in regard to setting up patient registries, in particular for autism. Thanks for that question, Tom. And I think that is definitely a prime example of a topic that this course would look at, and is exactly the type of feedback that we're looking to you all for, in our initial needs assessment survey, because we don't really want to have this be about formal curriculum, and we're not expecting trainees coming out of this to be to take a test on, the various topics of data science, but really how the concepts and issues in data science are relevant to them. And this issue that you raise of issues and pros and cons in weighing the risk and benefit to contributing data, and how that data is being used, that is definitely a very relevant issue, and that we see this course focusing on.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we want to accomplish through this course is having patients understand sort of the importance of patients in big data research. So that sort of goes along with that. And like Alicia said, that is one of the things we're going to be talking about in the needs assessment, and it's one of the things why we're wanting to engage so many stakeholders is to identify topics that they think are important. And thank you very much for asking that question. And actually moving on to the next question regarding the timetable for discussing information learned in the needs assessment. As I mentioned, we're asking for all responses by October 9th, and so we're going to start, going through all of that information after that, and we are going to start discussing it at the public kickoff meeting, which we have scheduled for tentatively for early December, but once we get a final date nailed down, we will be sending out an email about that. So that would be when we would start discussing the findings of our needs assessment.
And on that note, I'll just add, so for that kickoff meeting, and again, we'll be circulating the announcement and invitation to that once we select a date, but we do plan to webcast that for those that are unable to attend in person. You will still have an opportunity to participate and provide input.
Are there any more questions over the phone? If not, we have a few more questions from our chat feature that we can answer.
So Beth Stronach asked, what is the scope of the training program and how many people are we trying to reach, and will it be through a nationally available workshop or select people having to come to DC for the training? So thank you for all of those questions. And so I think you can already see from the brief discussion we've had here that the scope is still fairly large. And so we are hoping to kind of hone this down a little bit into some key areas of focus. And we're hoping that's one of the main things that the steering committee is going to get to work on once we finalize that committee. And in regard to the training program itself, I'll back up. So really the first year of this program is going to be about developing the content that will be covered in the training course. And so we're still about a year away from the physical training course itself. And that said, we do plan in that second year to hold 3 pilot training workshops. And we do expect these to be relatively smaller than where we see this going in the long run. But we thought it better to start small and scale up rather than starting big and not having issues. So our vision is really to start off with the first training workshop being between around 15 to 20 people, and then the next 20 to 25, and then the next 25 to 30, a gradual incremental increase. And that said, that's kind of what we're thinking right now, and that's before we've gotten the steering committee in place and other partners in place. And so it's very possible that those numbers might change. We might feel more ready in a year's time to start with a bigger training course. The note on where this will be, again, at this time, since we are based in DC, we do imagine at least one of the trainings will be in DC, but one reason we're looking to partner and collaborate with other groups is for opportunities to potentially hold these workshops in other locations. And so in some of our initial conversations with potential partners, we have some promising feedback and interest, and we do believe that we will be able to hold the trainings in different locations. So if the first training were to be in DC, then we would likely look for the second training to be in another location. And I hit on the point why we thought the in-person training component is critical to this program. That said, we do believe there will be some online component. So we've talked about this community of practice as a way to keep trainees, well, not even trainees, just all the stakeholders involved in this project engaged both during the course and after. But additionally, we do see the opportunity to develop specific content modules that could be shared and posted online and made available more broadly. And to the case study idea that Diana was talking about earlier, that's one way we envision on sharing resources. We could record different case study presentations and make these more broadly available. So Jeanette Ferguson asks, do advocates need to be associated with a specific group, or can they be independent advocates? That's a great question, thanks. And at least my feeling is that I don't think that they will need to be associated with any particular group. Once we do get closer to the training course, it will be an application procedure to apply to take the training, but we won't be kind of narrowing that to any specific group or disease area. And I guess I just saw your clarifying question, and no, they do not have to be actively associated with a profit at this time. And to add, the training program, it will be free for the patients to attend and take the training. And part of our fundraising plan is looking into providing travel scholarships for those that are unable to pay to travel to attend this course to take.
Do we have any more questions?
A question online. Michelle Colder-Karas asks if we have identified other similar training efforts either here in the U.S. or other countries. I'll say at this time we haven't identified any similar training efforts with this particular focus. That's not to say that we haven't missed any. So please feel free. We are definitely all ears. If anyone knows of any other similar or parallel efforts, we welcome your input, and we will gladly get in touch with those. All right, kind of expanding on that last point that I was just talking about, similar efforts, not to put anyone on the spot, but if Nancy Roach is still on the line, I know you mentioned your different experiences. Do you have any other recommendations for lessons learned from other training programs?
I think the hardest thing for these types that I found is for people to understand and feel comfortable opening their mouths, and then opening their mouths appropriately. And in that, I think one of the things that has been interesting about being involved with a couple of NCI efforts is that NCI did an advocate engagement working group several years ago that came out with some definitions and that I thought were very helpful in that it called on advocates in research settings to understand that they were there to represent the collective patient experience. So helping people understand that and using that voice effectively. I know that sounds kind of wishy-washy, but that's the hardest thing for me. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Wow, thank you for your input.
And please, if others on the line have experiences that they would like to share, we can use this time freely. We have a few more minutes left as scheduled, so don't be shy. Speak up.
And also, you can see our email addresses back up there in case you think of something later or you want to email us directly. The BD4P at Reagan-Udall.org.
Well, if there's no other questions at this time, like Diana just said, if you do think of any other questions or have any other input, any other things you would like to share with us, feel free to get in touch with us over email, or if you're in the DC area and would like to meet in person, we are definitely open to that. And so we are here and eager and ready to talk to our stakeholders, and of which we hope we can include all of you. And so we hope that this webinar will be the start of many more. And so you should be receiving a survey at the end of this webinar once we hang up, asking for input and ideas for future topics to explore. And coming back to the case study and case study idea, these webinars could be opportunities to highlight different case studies and perspectives from other groups. So if your group would like to speak to some training effort or data effort and would like to share your learnings and experience, we would love for you to come talk to us. So that said, I would just like to thank everyone again for joining us today, learning a little bit more about our Big Data for Patients project. We hope to hear more from you all soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone.